So again, thank you for joining us this evening for our Tiger Talks series, celebrating Black History Month. This evening, our expert panelists will discuss academic success and the Black student experience. I'm Dr. Ryan Barnhart, Assistant Provost for Student Success and Retention here at Salem University. I'm very pleased to introduce our guests this evening. Dr. Laquita Talton is a letter of appointment faculty member here at Salem University, as well as serving as a faculty member at other institutions, and has over a decade of experience in higher education administration and student success. Professor Tamba Morena is an adjunct professor at Salem University. He was born in the Gambia, West Africa, and moved to the US in his early teens, eventually becoming a member of the conference champion soccer team at his alma mater, California University of Pennsylvania. In addition to his role at Salem University, he is the corporate director of personal training at High Tone Fitness in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dr. Chartice Wyatt Thermal is the Assistant Director for Academic Support at the University of Mississippi FedEx Student Athlete Success Center. She works primarily with women's tennis and track and field student athletes and has previously served as the Director of the Academic Center for Student Athletes at Shippensburg University. And Dr. Veda Talton is the Assistant Director of a transitional youth shelter in California. Her research specialization is in the mentoring experiences of Black graduate students who attended predominantly white institutions, and her future research focuses on cultivating opportunities of empowerment for Black students. Panelists, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening.
Great to be here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
For having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It is definitely our pleasure to host you this evening, and we are very much looking forward to this conversation. As we have this moderated conversation, we'll ask that all of our guests, the students joining us, if you have questions, please hold those to the end. We'll have time at the end of our moderated discussion for open questions as well. So we'll begin the conversation, I think specifically, what should, in your opinions, what should students know specifically about perceptions regarding the Black student experience at the undergraduate and beyond levels, graduate or doctoral? How is the experience for Black students maybe different than their counterparts or their peers that aren't students of color?
I'll start us off.
You got it. Go ahead.
Okay, so in my opinion, when we talk about the Black student experience, mostly our undergraduate students who are minorities, there's about 13% of them at the undergraduate level. So you figure most of them are first generation college students. So when I'm working with students from a diverse background who are first generation and who are attending predominantly white institutions or just attending college for the first time, I talk to them about the real, basically what they're going to encounter, any barriers that they may come across, and how they may face imposter syndrome, because we don't discuss that a lot, until we get to, our master's program or doctoral level program when we're the only minorities in the class. So I try to focus a little bit on what they may experience based on my experience and talk about that to let them know that it's normal to encounter these barriers, but it's also possible to overcome those as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'll piggyback off of what Dr. Taunton just talked about. So I'll kind of speak on two things here. I'll speak on the Black male student experience, and I'll speak on the Black male student athlete experience. So I think in general, just there's a perception that, we somewhat don't belong. A lot of the perception is that, okay, you are here because of affirmative action, some kind of diversity clauses being implemented, and things of that nature. So in terms of the Black student, the Black male student experience in general, the perception is that a lot of young Black males don't even graduate high school. So the fact that, we're moving on to go to college institutions, and a lot of us go to predominantly white schools, becomes an even bigger issue, I think. And there's a perception that, okay, well, you're here because of whatever else is going on, right? And in terms of the black student athlete experience, I can speak, from firsthand here, is that you're here because you're an athlete. Are your grades good enough? Are your SAT scores good enough? And the answer to that, obviously, I think everyone on this panel will agree that it's absolutely yes. Most of us actually, not only do we go to good high schools, but we're pretty good students coming out of high school going into college. So I think those perceptions are always there. And Dr. Talton talked about imposter syndrome. It's a huge thing. We start doubting that. Do I deserve to be here? Should I be here? And I always tell young kids that absolutely you deserve to be there. And you are as deserving as your white counterparts, your Hispanic counterparts, your Asian counterparts, right? So we're all here for the same thing. We're all here to kind of graduate and better ourselves moving forward.
I first would like to preface by saying I have a sleepy 2-year-old, so if you hear some screams, it's my baby fighting his nap. But I agree totally with both of you, especially as a former student athlete. There's always going to be preconceived notions about you and biases about you, whether you got here because you were low income, you got here because of affirmative action, you got here because you got a special scholarship. And the higher you go up the rank in education, the more biases there are about you. So, and granted, the Black student experience is not monolithic. So you have to be strong with who you are and make sure that you maintain your values and your in your goals, because it's going to you'll have moments where it's hard and it's a struggle, and you're not going to see many people who look like you or people who are in positions like professors. You won't always see people who look like you, but connect with those who do look like you to help get you along, and we'll address that later. But I definitely agree that it's a different experience, but forming groups and having friends and having people who look like you in your corner is very helpful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the perception of having a different journey is often seen as something that's bad or it's problematic. And I think that the difference is it's not bad, right? Just because our needs are different or our experience or our realities are different, or maybe the resources that we need may look different than our counterparts, but that's okay. And I think that embracing that and just realizing that what you need in your journey may look different is okay. And embracing that and accepting that, I think, is definitely something that's been helpful for me.
Dr. Veda Talton, just as a follow-up, I know, since your research was specifically in the graduate student, Black graduate student experience at predominantly white institutions, was there any specific findings that maybe you found relevant specifically for graduate students and their thoughts in that respect?
Yeah, I think that for the few respondents who did have some experience with mentorship, I think that they spoke volumes to the importance of having that mentoring relationship. And then for the folks who didn't necessarily have the opportunity to have a mentor as a Black graduate student, they spoke to them thinking that it would have impacted their experience, right? Because either not having Black faculty or just not having someone that looks like them in the classroom, they think that, impacted how their journey was. So I think that just having someone that kind of understands your journey, that can kind of share some of your experiences, I think definitely arose as an important component to a positive academic experience.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Now, this will be, again, open to the general panel. So what strategies, maybe specifically, would you suggest for students, any student, including student athletes, to implement for academic success? More specifically, what do you recommend as best practices that maybe you've seen be effective, whether it's in the literature and research or specifically from experience? And Dr. Wyatt Thermal, I think, with your role at the University of Mississippi, that's a very unique perspective. Could maybe you start us off on this question with your perspective there?
Absolutely. So I was a former student athlete at Robert Morris University, and then I can work with student athletes. So I see, especially at primarily white institutions, finding your group, whether that's friends, or that one professor or that one staff member or that one coach, finding your group who will first hold you accountable so that you don't kind of succumb to the pressures that might follow you around campus from the negativity that you might face. But finding your group, definitely finding friends who can keep you accountable, but also finding friends who that you can go and get your goals with. Finding people that can motivate you and help you realize that you are, in this specific instance, that you're more than an athlete. Because there are so many stereotypes out there about Black and Brown students that are negative, and that can kind of be overwhelming, can be kind of be damaging to the mental. So making sure that you find your spaces, find someone that you can talk to and kind of vent to. That's what I do for my students. So I have some students who come from places that I might not have lived their experience, but I can relate to it, or I can understand what they're going through, because at one point in my time, I was the only Black female on the track team. So I know what that was like. Granted, you might have an ally, but you might not have someone who knows that me. So I can relate to that experience, or I can be a listening ear because I'm a Black woman. But making sure that you find your group of people that can listen to you, whether that's at the university or someone outside the university.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm going to piggyback. I'm going to ask Professor Moreno this question next. The same thing. You, as a student athlete, I know, for those of you that aren't familiar with California University of Pennsylvania, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, in Washington County. So I have to imagine, you had to come up with, rely on different strategies or develop them in your experience. Can you
yeah,
speak
absolutely.
to that?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback, it's very important to find mentorship. By the time I was a senior at Cal U, I was the only Black kid on the soccer team, right? So kind of looking around and just like she just said, finding an ally, right? And luckily for me, I had some great friends that also served as mentors, some older, some younger. But I think for me, I always just kind of go back to remembering why I'm here, right? I'm here solely to graduate. I'm here solely to move on to the next thing. So I think just having that in the back of your mind is always just super important, right? Put your studies first. Remember why you're here, right? At the end of the day, the percentages against us anyway, right? Black male students have the lowest graduation rate out of everyone, right? That's a proven fact. So just kind of us remembering why we're here, and making sure that we keep our focus on that, and understanding that, hey, this is just bigger than just being in college and having a good time and being here for 4 years and kind of moving on, right? And I always tell people, just focusing on what you really want to do too. I think that's super important. That's not talked about enough. A lot of us go into college and not really having an idea of what we want to do post college. So start kind of focusing on exactly, what can I see myself doing for the remainder of my working life. Just focus on that and just focus on your studies and make sure that you remember, at the end of the day, I'm here to be a student first. I'm here to graduate. And I think when we put that in the forefront, it becomes an even easier journey and a more focused journey, right? At the end of the day, focus is a big thing. And we have to kind of just keep our eyes on the prize at the end of the day.
Great. Either of the Dr. Taltons, anything to add?
I think for me it's just of course mentorship, but I think that also the notion of you having the ability to find a mentor and take that initiative. I think a lot of times it can be scary or intimidating to approach someone or to express interest in needing a mentor or needing that support. But I think that a lot of times you'll see that the few Black faculty or staff that are Black are overworked and spread thin, so they probably aren't going to find you. So I think that just taking the initiative to find those folks or at least make those connections, I think is definitely going to be beneficial to helping you build that tribe or to find that support that you need. You may have to be the one to take that initiative.
Dr. T, anything?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said. The mentorship, like that's very important, especially at the undergraduate level. Being fortunate enough to find someone who looks like you, who you can relate to, who has been down that journey. So, you know, you're going to them regarding some issues that you may encounter that they've already been through. So I definitely agree with everything that they're saying.
I think this is a great segue into our next question. And you know, talking about connecting and specifically with resources, right? For success, both in the classroom and then, you know, in graduation and beyond. So, is there maybe, you know, one specific resource that you have used or have found successful that, you know, specifically, or maybe even it was like a person that you connected with, you know, a specific person, like a professor or a director of a specific program, that was successful. Is there like one that you could point out? Anyone can go first on this one, I guess. It's kind of a lot of.
I'll start. So for me, it was Miss Cassandra. She was she was the director of the academic center. She was the director of all academic counselors, but I didn't have the best experience with my academic counselor, and she was a white woman. But it wasn't because of race or anything. We didn't interact well with. So Miss Cassandra took me under her wing, and she was more like a grandmother. She was the person that I needed. She talked to me just like my grandmother would, and yelled at me sometimes when I needed it. But also, she showed compassion. She motivated me. She was there as a support system. She told me things about like when I needed that extra nudge. She was there for me. So she was exactly what I needed. And like we've said prior, you might not always find that person. You might have to go look for that person. Or you might have that person right now and you just need to kind of further develop that relationship. But having a support system, and you'll hear us continuously echo this, having a mentor, having just someone that you can go to talk to, is what really can make or break your college career.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of just being a student athlete and having great resources and great mentors. So my head coach in college was a white man, but I think he's somewhat understood that the sport I'm in and the school I'm in, I'm kind of a minority. So automatically he set me up with Miss Caroline Tard. I think everyone, Dr. Barnhart, you're very familiar with her. And she served as a mentor for me. And he also put me on for my work study job with Miss Dollar. And Miss Dollar, her daughter was the same age as myself. And we kind of built a connection there. And I started connecting with other young Black students just being in her office every day. And that was major for me. It was a good outlet for me. You know, once I wanted to, you know, get away and talk to people about some of our same struggles that we've been through, some of the same childhood experiences, some of the same places that we're from. And it kind of just made my experience at Cal U that much better because I was able to have those mentors. I was able to have those peers that can understand me and that can kind of relate to some of the same things I was going through. So I think finding that mentor, and hopefully, you know, if you're an athlete, your coach or whoever can kind of, you know, put you into the right circles and the right groups and put you around the right people to be able to ensure that you have a good experience as a student. Because, you know, going to some of these schools, we are vastly the minority. And it can be somewhat intimidating. I know a lot of my friends that I made at Cal U came from places where there was a few white people in their high schools, and now they're doing a complete change and coming into a predominantly white school. So now they're having to adjust to everything that was going on. So, I mean, vice versa, it's a good experience to kind of be around people that share some of the same things and some of the same sentiments and have some of the same beliefs and some of the same stuff as you have, right? That's just human nature, that we kind of just gravitate towards some of the same people that look like us, that are from the same places. Not to say that don't make, you know, other friends and don't interact with other people, but it's always good to have that feel of home in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I think, you know, I was a first generation college student. So I think that taking advantage of any financial resources or support was extremely helpful for me. I had a single mom, so there was no financial support from her. So I had, you know, I made sure that I had my financial aid, I had my work study jobs. In undergrad, I was a part of like the like the books student loan. So I got free books. At the graduate level, I had an assistantship so that my tuition was paid. I applied for scholarships, right? So all the financial support that I could obtain, I made sure that I took advantage of, because I think that that's also an extra burden that you don't need to worry about if you don't have to, right? Like, why stress over financial resources when the money's there? It's just about knowing where to apply, when to apply, and making sure that you apply, because there's tons of money. I mean, even for us, there was one year that one of our advisors told us that we just have money. The department has money, and we're just trying to give it away, And so I think that just knowing when to apply, why, and how to apply is there. So definitely take advantage of those.
And I think another strategy, or some things that I think about when I'm working with the undergraduate students, is, you try to strategize based on what's in right now. So, what are the undergraduate students into, the minorities, or, just all of them, what are they into? Social media. And so I'll try to tell my students, hey, even if you're in an undergraduate program right now, maybe on Facebook, find a program. If you're interested in a master's program, find like a group, maybe a criminal justice master's program group, because what you're going to see is a diverse group of people going through a master's program and facing these barriers that, you're not necessarily facing at the undergraduate level, but you can certainly relate and get that experience. And I think that's very motivating as well. So, a strategy of mine is really to push them to kind of look for a resource that they may not be familiar with at this moment. So you're not familiar with a master's program, but you can see that they're going through issues, and, adult learners are working through the barriers that they have. And you at this level as well, you're working on your own issues and problems, but you can overcome those. So I always try to kind of push them a step forward as a strategy to keep them going, and to, let them know that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, that's great points, I think there. And I think that, again, a lot of the conversation here is probably on purpose leading towards our next question. But so thinking about your specific experiences at the undergraduate level, at the graduate level, at the doctorate level, is there a significant moment maybe in your academic career that you did something, you helped yourself to invest in yourself toward being successful, not just academically, but professionally, for after graduation? Was there like one, like, light bulb aha moment where you're like, I'm going to do this because I know it's going to pay off?
Yeah, I can start off in this one. For me, it's funny because it was my junior year when I joined the Black Student Union. Right, I knew it was a thing, but I am too busy. I'm an athlete. I have a job, all these things. But then I joined, and then I started learning about leadership, right? How to lead women and men, and how to just build a community. And for me, that was that light bulb moment. I should have done this earlier. I even considered joining a frat, right? But time constraints didn't allow me to do that. But for me, that was the big moment when I was like, okay, there's more to being on a campus than just going to practice, going to weight training, going to class, going to my work study job, right? So to me, that was just something that kind of changed my entire experience in college. And I joined the international club. So now I'm learning how to, be around different people, learn how to lead, learn how to communicate, learn how to build a community. And for what I do today for a living, everything kind of just ties in perfectly, right? I'm a leader of men and women. I'm having to deal with, some people that are kind of big shots, as we like to call them, right? But I'm able to conduct myself, and I'm able to be in these rooms and fit right in because of those experiences. So for me, joining the BSU was huge change in my career in college. So.
I think for me, it was me choosing to study abroad at the undergraduate level. I studied abroad in Ghana, West Africa, for 10 months. And that literally changed the trajectory of my degrees, my interests, in far as like my career. And so I think that traveling definitely has impacted all that I do. And I mean, now, like, traveling is almost second nature. I've been to almost 25 countries at this point. So I think that that's definitely something that I would say take advantage of, right? Especially if you're receiving financial aid, um, or even if you're just however you're paying tuition, because it's for most universities, when you're studying abroad, whatever tuition you pay that year is what you're going to pay while you study abroad. And so I think that just taking advantage of that or considering traveling while you're in school, I think it definitely enhances your academic experience and your professional development.
Hey, Dr. Taunton, if you don't mind me asking, where in Ghana were you?
And Accra.
Oh, nice. Okay, my dad was in East Legon for years. So
Oh, yeah, that's where I went. I was studied at East Legon. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. All right, well, that's awesome.
I would say for me is I started my our doc program at 23. So I had interesting fact about me. I spent in both Vita just a little bit more than me, but I spent 10 years in college straight. We graduated last May, but I was 23. I had suffered heavily from imposter syndrome. I didn't think I belonged. I thought it was a fluke whenever I got my acceptance letter. Like, I just graduated my master's like 2 months ago, and they really accepted me into this program. I'm like, I have no experience. But at that moment, I decided to take a chance on myself. I was nervous, I was afraid, but luckily I had a wonderful cohort. There was 18 of us. Two of the ladies, both Vita and Laquita, were in my cohort, but they believed in me. So they helped me just as much as I helped myself. And it helped me learn to take a chance on yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. If you don't walk into the room confidently, no one will believe what you're here to present, what you're here to talk about, what you stand for. So take a chance on yourself every once in a while. It'll definitely change your trajectory. It'll definitely change how you feel about yourself.
And I think for me, my experience, I think, and it, a lot of people may frown upon this, but placing yourself in situations that you're going to feel uncomfortable. I mean, you're absolutely going to feel uncomfortable. For example, if you're used to working with international students and then, maybe your boss at work is telling you need to work with a different group of students who you've never worked with. So you don't know the background of these students. You don't know if you're going to connect with them. I think that you need to be uncomfortable to grow and to be able to help another individual who may be uncomfortable. So, you want to place yourself in situations where you're thinking, hey, I didn't think I would ever do this, or maybe I didn't think I would ever travel abroad, like Dr. Vita Tolton said. But, you want to place yourself in situations where you're going to have to step outside the box, do some critical thinking, and really just assess who you are at that level when, you're stepping into something that you're not knowledgeable about. So I think that helps out a lot too.
Yeah, I'll definitely say I currently live in Mississippi. I have a mentor who's told me to apply for this position. I had never been to Mississippi. And if you know anything about Mississippi, it doesn't have the best rep. It's the place where Emmett Till was murdered. And I was like, are you sure? Listen, I'm a Black girl with a Black family, Mississippi, but it's actually turned out to be one of the best experiences that I've had so far. And I'm working with women's tennis. I know nothing about tennis. So be willing to be uncomfortable because nothing grows in comfort.
Very cool. Very, very, very sage advice there. And that is our last kind of moderated question here. If you could go back, we talked about like the moment that you invest in yourself, but if you're anything like me, you probably have maybe several moments where you're like, I wish I would have done something different, right? Earlier in your undergraduate or academic career. So is there one thing, if you could go back, we invented the time machine, or maybe Elon Musk does, and we go back and, you can go back to your younger self when you're just starting your academic career. Is there one piece of advice that you would maybe give, future you would give old you, to just as like a heads up, is there one maybe piece of advice that you go back and give yourself?
For me, I would say start with business and stick with business. I changed my major. I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, realized that seeing too much blood makes me pass out, so that wasn't going to work. I went and made it through med school, but and then I changed my major about 4 or 5 times before I landed on marketing. I had an amazing professor who helped me make that decision, but as a result of me continuously switching my major my last year because my scholarship was going to end. So I had to graduate in 4 years still. So my last 2 semesters, I took 21 credits both semesters to graduate on time. And although you have time to make a decision about your major, don't wait till your junior or senior year to do so, because you'll be in school paying more money. Unless you have a scholarship that'll help you, it can get costly.
Yeah, I will echo what you just said, Dr. Thermal. For me, being a student athlete, my first major was actually computer sciences, right? I was in it for 2 semesters. I was doing well, but labs started getting a little bit too difficult. I started making excuses, right? Well, with practice and all this stuff, like, can I actually make this happen? And looking back now, the answer is absolutely yes, right? Because I have a few friends that were on my team that actually graduated with computer science degrees. So for me, I wish I could go back and just stick to the STEMs, right? Science, technology, math, and the whole nine, right? But I'll just kind of make a decision, be assertive, and kind of stick with it. It will be my advice to everyone. I wish I stuck with that major. I'm more than happy doing what I do today. I make a good living doing it. I enjoy it. I enjoy changing people's lives. I enjoy leading people. But that's one that I always go back to, man. I wish I stuck with that one. So I think that's a great point. So.
For me, I think similarly to what has been said, I think that we all as Black professionals have probably encountered the feeling at one point or another of being an imposter. So I think that just doubting myself or questioning, do I deserve to occupy this space? Do I deserve to, sit in this classroom? Yes, you do. And I think that would be my message to my younger undergraduate self, that don't doubt yourself. You deserve to be in this space. You deserve to occupy this academic realm, and don't question it. Of course you do. So, yeah.
And I think the best advice that I could give is find a network. So find individuals who you're at the undergraduate level, but find multiple professors who you can relate to or who you feel comfortable with. Because I had one professor who I felt so comfortable with her throughout my 4 year. I tagged along with her, like just her. And I would just talk to only her, and I would only feel comfortable with her, which I think it did not hinder any opportunities that came my way. However, I think that when you actually expand and try to get to know multiple people who can get you to where you're going, it's going to benefit and work out for you better than just kind of staying in your comfort zone. So again, getting uncomfortable and getting to know a professor who, you might be teaching science and you're not interested in science, you're interested in English, but just making sure that you keep your opportunities open and you actually cling on to multiple people who can get you to where you're going, and they'll look out for you, and it'll be in your best interest, to have multiple people who've already been down that road as well.
All great advice, I think, from all of our panelists today on not just that question, but everything. This has been a very insightful conversation, and I think that everything that we've talked about this evening has been great. I would like, though, if it's okay with our panelists, to open up to any questions from our attendees. So if any of the attendees have any questions they'd like to ask our panelists, now would be the time to go ahead and unmute and go ahead. No questions. Everyone's silent.
Dr. B, I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Mariano, go ahead.
Yeah, so they just mentioned that it is very important to get out of our comfort zone by approaching all the professors that we can, seeking opportunities. And my question goes, what would be the best way to approach a teacher that I haven't been in class with, that I don't really know, but I want to establish that relationship? How should I approach him or her?
Honestly, what I would do, and I mean, this is me thinking back to my younger self. If it's a professor who you've never had in class, I would kind of take a look at their background. kind of see if there's anything in their background or any classes that they taught that you've enjoyed, maybe that you took with another professor, and try to find something that's similar between you and them, and then kind of approach them like, hey, I noticed that your background is criminal justice, and I may want to get my master's in criminal justice. Can you tell me what your journey was like, or can you explain, what made you choose that major? So I think that approaching multiple professors or having them as, a support system works out by first trying to find out if there's anything you may have in common. If not, I mean, I know a lot of professors who are very helpful, and I don't think I've ever been turned away from any of them, regardless if I had them in class or not. I think that student success, for the most part, is really what professors at the institutions I've attended and where I've worked, that's number one priority. And so they'd be more than welcome to, sit with you and make sure you're comfortable, or, getting to know you, and just supporting you in any way they can.
Yeah, and I want to echo what Dr. Q just said. One thing
Thank
I
you.
do know working with people every day is people love talking about themselves, right? People like telling you what accolades they have. So just find a good icebreaker to kind of reach out to people, right? Find an icebreaker, simple question, and you'll be surprised. People are more than inclined to open up and kind of share ideas with you. And if they can't help you, they'll send you to the right resources. It's just human nature that we kind of want to talk about things that we've done, things that we're good at, things that we enjoy doing. So just find a good icebreaker. Reach out to whoever it is you want to reach out to, and I think for the most part, people will be more than inclined to help or to send you to the right resources.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the panelists? I don't see any others in the chat, but I would like to thank all of our panelists for their time and expertise this evening. I think there have really been some great points, resources, and really opportunities for growth that have come out of this shared conversation for everyone. So I want to thank our panelists for being here this evening, and I want to thank all the students that are in attendance as well. And we hope that you'll join us for future Tiger Talk programming here in the future. So for all of us at Salem University, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.